Today, we are so excited to be speaking to Melissa Barlow. Mel was born and raised in South Africa. She moved to London and lived there for 7.5 years and has now been in Australia for 6 years. Melissa is not a financial advisor, but has always understood the importance of a money mindset. She purchased an investment property with her husband as soon as they were able and always sets aside a portion of her earnings to be invested or saved. Mel believes that a money mindset is not only about focusing on what you earn, but also never spending above your means. Designer labels, expensive cars, are all things that she would never do. Every year, she tries to learn something new and reassess where they are on their wealth building journey. Last year, during COVID lockdowns, Mel spent some time learning about micro investing. And after some conversations we've had with her about it, we really wanted to investigate a little bit more about it. So Mel has joined us today to share a bit about what she has learned. Hello, and welcome to the Transformation Project, a podcast and community for women who are looking to transform into the best version of themselves, no matter where they're at. A place where you can listen, learn, and laugh along with us as we dive deep into different topics to help you live a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled life. Remember, we are all learning here together, and therefore the content and opinions of the hosts and our guests should not be taken as medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Hello, and welcome back to the Transformation Project. We're so excited to have you here today. We are going on a slightly different tangent today. When we were first talking about all the different pillars of health that make up holistic health, one of them is obviously finances, because we know that if our finances are struggling, that can affect our health as well. So that is one of our pillars of health. And so today we're going to be heading into that financial area. And we're super excited to be able to speak to our friend Melissa Barlow today. And Mel and the three of us kind of got into a conversation about micro investing. Now, I know nothing about micro investing. Our family does invest in crypto and on the share market, but as far as micro investing, I know nothing about it. How about you guys?
I know a little bit. Sorry, no, that's not. Ben knows, my partner knows a little bit, and I do what he tells me to.
Right.
Yeah, so I do put a little bit away every week. It comes out of my bank account automatically. It's through this app that I can never pronounce, Raise or Raz. I say it the wrong way, and I don't ever look at it. And he tells me there's money in there and it's doing well or it's not, and I just say, cool.
Yes, my story is a little bit different. So several years ago when I was married, my ex-husband and I, we went along to a seminar, Mel, and, we kind of bought into the whole seminar thing and ended up investing a significant amount of money, like tens of thousands of dollars. And that was in the share market. And we handed everything over to these people and the money was then lost. So it took me a long time to step back into a space of wanting to put anything out there. And actually, as a single mum for many years, and I just had a tiny little bit of surplus income, I stumbled across what was known as Acorn, and then since changed to Raise. I had the pleasure of listening to a gentleman speak about it. He came to Virgin and talked, and he was part of the ACCC, and he talked about Raise as well as one of the best new products on the market for micro investing. So given that I had a lot of trust in him and I knew who he was as an individual, I stepped my little toes into Raise, and I have been kind of doing that for a few years now. But I believe there's a few other micro investing products that you wanted to kind of share with us and talk to us about the difference and the value of them. They're all a little bit different, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, you're right that Raise or Acorn was one of the first ones on the market, and they certainly have an interesting approach or strategy to micro investing. But there's certainly a few others that have come out there since, and it's nice to have different options because everybody may feel differently about how much money you want to invest every week or month.
So Mel, okay, so for people like me who have no idea what micro investing is and anything about it, what is that? So what's micro investing? How is it different to any other kind of investing or being on the share market or whatever else? What is it and how is it different?
Yeah, sure. So I guess, first of all, micro investing has just allowed, the general person, anybody with smaller amounts of money, to start investing and playing around in the share market. So traditionally, or, even 5 years ago, you had to have a bit of money to get started, because the only way to buy shares was to either have a brokerage account. A lot of the times, they may have said you need 5K or 10K to even open a brokerage account, or you'd be using an online share trading platform, and they would have had minimum purchase amounts. So, you may have had to at least buy shares for $500, and there would have been fixed fees. So if I think of the very first set of shares that I bought, there was a $15 fee for the transactions. So, what that means is you can't go and buy shares for $200 when you're paying $15 fee, because, you're losing a fair percentage of that right away. So that's the real game changer for micro investing, that it's done away with minimum amounts, or they are, really low, just to be reasonable. And there's so many different fee structures to support, the amount of money that you have and the way you'd like to invest.
When and why, I guess, did you get into investing?
So I probably bought my first set of shares just directly, reading about Amazon at the time. When I lived in London, I started using Amazon a lot, and I thought, I'm going to buy shares in Amazon. And I just went ahead and purchased them. But again, I used the bonus at the time because there was a bit of fees. And so I'd do that. And I'd probably do that once every year. I just go, okay, what's my next company? Google, Apple, all of those big players. And then last year, when Melbourne had the really long lockdown, we had all this extra time on my hands, and I thought, okay, I'm going to use this time constructively and really just sit down and look at what are all the other options that are out there now. And just went and started reading Motley Fool. There's a magazine you can subscribe to, and just learning about, what an ETF is and what are all these different funds, and really just the different ways that you can actually get into the share market.
Right. And you're not a financial advisor, right? You don't have to be heads up in finance to be able to get started in this.
That's it. Micro investing just allows anybody to start investing in shares. And what they have done as well is they offer portfolios. So it takes away the decision that you have to make to find a company and buy shares in them. So you could think, if you're just going to go out and buy a set of shares on a normal share trading platform, you've got to know what to buy, right? So now that's the first big decision, like who do you buy in? And then you're putting all your money in one company. So if that company all of a sudden, tanks or something happens to it, you've got a bigger risk there. Whereas what these platforms that are out there now for micro investing have done is they've made portfolios. So when you invest money in them, you're putting in smaller amounts, but you're also not just putting it into one company. So they have a portfolio, and there may be 200, 500 different companies in there. So, you're therefore like hedging your risk a little bit better, because you've got a different range of companies. If one goes up, maybe the other goes down, but you're overall okay.
And so can you choose what risk you want to play with?
You absolutely can. So depending on the different portfolio or the different platform that you're out there, like we've mentioned Raise a couple of times, and when you look at their portfolios, they literally call them moderate risk, high risk, and the more adventurous and things like that. And then the other ones will have, I guess you may want to spend a little bit of time learning about what an ETF is and what's in there, so that you can actually look at what sort of companies are in that portfolio. So they may, for example, say, this is an Australian portfolio. So every company in here will be Australian only, and it'll be the top 500 Australian companies. And then another one could be emerging markets. So it'll be like Asia, Africa, all of those places where maybe a bit more riskier, but then also your opportunity for growth in those, could be higher. So they always explain to you exactly what is in each portfolio, and you get to pick and choose in what you'd like to invest in.
Okay, so that's in some of the other platforms as well, or as Raise? Because I've to be honest, I've never looked too deeply. I picked the highest risk because I've never got anything in that I'm not willing to lose, but I want to make my chances the best that they can. And
go hard or go home.
That's right.
Yeah, Raise follows that similar principle. Essentially, in their lower risk portfolio, you're going to be looking at, US markets or European markets, and then they've got emerging markets. And in one of their most highest risk ones, they even have a bit of crypto in there. So you're actually investing in cryptocurrency via the portfolio rather than buying it directly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Might be a silly question. Is cryptocurrency still considered micro investing? Can it be or no?
Well, I guess if Raise has cryptocurrency as part of their portfolio, and so you're still micro investing, because instead of buying a coin, you may be buying a fraction of a coin. But yeah, you can. There are definitely apps out there that will allow you to buy a component of a coin and things like that. But cryptocurrency is a whole other beast, really.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to get somebody to come on and talk to us about that at some point too, because I don't fully understand either. But definitely, that too seems easier than playing on the share market. And I'm really impressed with you, Kaz, because I know when I was a single mom, I was terrified to do, I was hanging on to every bit of money, and I didn't have any extra to play on the share market. And that's all I had thought was available. Hadn't looked further than that. And I was just terrified. It was like, there's no way I'm not going to even go near that at all. And it probably wasn't until we started reading the Barefoot Investor and that sort of stuff that I even kind of thought about the share market or anything. And even I think in the original version of that book, he doesn't speak about micro investing either. So tell me, Mel, and this is an aside question, I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but on any of these, so when you're investing, are you able to say, I want to only invest in companies that are environmentally friendly or, something like that?
Yeah, you sure can. And again, it depends on which one you choose. But in Spaceship, they have 3 portfolios. One of them is all tech companies, or what they call up and coming markets. So it could be, things like Afterpay, and of course, everything where you think that there's going to be a lot of growth in. Then they've got another one, which is just a flat sort of the largest companies in the world, and that's going to be based on the share value. And then their third portfolio is an Earth one. So it's all about companies that, are very focused on obviously having a positive impact on the climate and the Earth.
Oh, that's cool. What's that one called?
Spaceship.
Okay. I've never heard of that one. What are all, I've really only ever heard of Raise. What are they all?
Yeah, so it might be a good idea now. I can tell you just, I guess, a very short overview of the 4 that I think are the main players and what are the key differences between them and how they work. And those would be CommSec Pocket, which is a component of CommBank, Superhero, Raise, and Spaceship. So if we go through CommSec Pocket, they have 7 different portfolios that you can buy in, and there'll be Aussie stocks that pay dividends. So if you really want to just know, which companies pay the largest amount of dividends every year, emerging markets. So they have a number of different portfolios. All of their portfolios are always just based on largest companies, in a specific area or region. And what you can do then is put in money. You can choose any one of those portfolios. So you can switch between them and have a combination of them that you invest in every month. And essentially, they have a minimum purchase of $50, so nice and easy, and a maximum of $1,000. So they're not looking for the big players out there. It's just people who want to save a little bit of money every month. And their fee for a transaction is $2. So every month you could choose to put away, whatever it is, a couple $100, and your fee is $2, and it's never going to be more than that. So nice and easy one to use. And if you do bank with CommBank, it integrates very well so that you can switch between the 2 of those. So $50 to $1,000, and it's a flat fee of $2 for every transaction. Then we've got Superhero. Now, Superhero is slightly different. They don't have portfolios or anything like that. You can essentially just go into their website and trade on any ASX share listed company. So any company that's listed is going to have their shares on the ASX. So with that one, you sort of have to know what company you want to buy in or anything like that. Now, you can, of course, always go and buy a Vanguard index fund. Those are available to buy on the ASX, and so you could choose to do those. And with them, they've got minimum of $100 and a flat fee of $5. But pretty good if you still want that flexibility. A lot of people don't like the idea of portfolios and they want to play around. Sometimes it's a bit of a hobby to learn about companies and, and make little guesses on them and things like that. So that's $5 for every transaction with Superhero. Then Raise or Acorn, as they were previously known. So they have a really interesting model where they actually round up your purchases. So every, thing you buy, if it's a coffee for $4.20, they take the 80 cents and it goes into your account, and they invest that every month. So really interesting model, which was well received on the market because you don't have to think about it. Then it's just happening in the background with them.
I love things you don't have to think about.
Yeah, exactly. For a lot of people, it's kind of hard to think I'm going to give up $200 at the end of the month, right? Where if it's just happening in the background, then it's nice and easy with them. So the only thing to be mindful with Raise, though, is that they do have a set monthly fee of $3.50. So you really need to make sure how much money you're going to spend, because if you only spend $100, you'll round up, then you've just wasted 3.5% of that on fees, which is higher than you should be doing. So whenever I'm looking at a fee, I always want my fee to be less than 1%. That's the way I always make sure that it's not going to be unreasonable, because otherwise, if your shares grow by 4%, you still only made 0.5% if you've lost 3.5%. So that's how Raise work. They've got a flat fee, and then only once your balance gets up to 15K do you then start paying an additional percentage on your fee. So if you know that you're going to be putting away a few hundred, it is a great app to use. And they also have portfolios that you can choose from on that one. And then our last one is Spaceship, one of the newer ones out on the market. Really interesting because I think they're new as well. They have no fees up until $5,000. So you can just invest every month and pay zero fees up until $5,000. And they have those 3 portfolios that I mentioned earlier. So a nice one that's new on the market to play around with and just start saving a little bit of money every month.
It's kind of like the idea of a piggy bank, but
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like that piggy bank idea, but it's online where you're just putting little bits away, but it's actually getting some income back on it as well, like making money on it. You're just not putting it there and it's sitting there.
Yeah, that's the thing. They always talk about don't ever invest more than you could bear to lose. And so it brings in, a nice little philosophy. If you just say, okay, if I buy a coffee every day, maybe I'm going to buy a coffee every second day, and that money that I would have spent on my coffee, I'm going to invest it. So if you lose it, well, you would have bought that coffee anyway, so who cares? But then it just gives you a small way to start saving and, just building in that habit of putting some money away every month.
And so, sorry, something that you mentioned earlier, you keep saying ETF. What is an ETF?
Yeah, so an ETF is essentially an index fund. So instead of buying shares in a company, if you've only got $1,000, and you don't want to put it all in one company, you can invest in an ETF. And what an index fund does is that it will have the top 200 or 500, they work differently, companies in a area. So if it's Australia, it'll be the top 200 companies, and it's constantly updating itself. So, if Canva's a big Australian company, if Canva all of a sudden, reduced in value, it would get automatically removed and the next one would come in. So it's always updating itself to have the top 200 companies in there. So it's really good for low risk investing because you're not putting all your money in one, company. You're automatically divesting it over 200 of the largest companies. So it's a pretty good bet that will do well. And an ETF is essentially the portfolios that these different platforms are allowing you to buy in. But then there's also the really well-known ones like Vanguard and things like that, which you can just buy directly on any platform and just buy shares in that fund.
So do you think that there's like one best one to invest in, or would you kind of diversify your platforms? Is that what you do?
Yeah, exactly. I always think it's good to diversify as much as possible. So I use, for example, Spaceship and Superhero. Every month I put money into Spaceship, and then on Superhero, what I do is just every quarter I'll go and, spend some time and think, okay, what do I think is a company that's good to invest in? And I'll buy shares in those.
This might be, again, a silly question, but I saw somewhere on social media that when there's a market crash coming, when big celebrity people start divorcing. So like Bill Gates is getting divorced, and what's the owner of Amazon?
Jeff
Yeah.
Bezos.
Yeah, they're getting divorced. So what are your thoughts on like if there is a market crash? I know like I'm Canadian, so we always look at the American stock market and stuff as like the one we really focus on. And they are saying it is supposed to crash soon. And obviously with COVID, it wasn't looking good for a while. But what are the risks if the stock market does crash? Like with micro investing, is there less of a risk?
I guess it doesn't make it less of a risk other than you potentially putting in smaller amounts of money in there. It does allow you to diversify your portfolio. So if you're using different portfolios, and, we spoke about the US. So if you're investing in both a US company market plus emerging markets and Australia, and you're doing, ones that are focused on just being good for the planet, so they could be a mixture of all different companies, then you're hedging your bets, because if all of a sudden the US market crashes, well, you've got your emerging markets, you've got your Aussie markets, you've got your ones that are earth, focused on the earth and things like that. So it does allow you to broaden your risk. But, I always say if the market is going to crash, you should never invest your emergency funds or things like that in the share market. That's a bad idea. Those should always be kept as readily available for you to access. And so if the market crashes, you just leave it alone, and, things will always recover. It may take 2 or 3 years, but I guess that's the idea around not having any of your emergency funds and things like that in your share market.
You just said something about like being able to have those emergency funds readily accessible. With these 4 platforms, how readily accessible is your money?
It's really, you can sell and have it immediately. But of course, if the shares have crashed, then, you don't want to sell at that moment. You want to leave those shares alone and wait for them to recover.
Yeah. But like I could go today and take out my money and okay, cool.
You can, yeah.
Jess is watching now.
Gotta pay more attention.
Thinking the same thing. Jess is like, Leave it alone, Jess.
Yeah, I'll leave it. That's fine. But just good to know.
Look, it is good to know. And I feel like it's one of those things, right? I think as women, we try to be on top of so many things at the same time. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to know everything about everything. But sometimes it's good to have conversations with other people and find trusted people who actually have that information to support you in making those decisions. And I understand that can be complicated too, right? Because especially when it comes to money, people can get really emotional around making, bad decisions. So as an example, with the cryptocurrency, which I've put a little bit of money into it, and I asked my brother, my sister and their brother, they're both very crypto knowledgeable, but they're like, keep, invest this and this and this. But my sister said, set yourself a plan. So when it doubles, then you sell, and then you sell the difference and then invest that in something else, which had I listened to her, I would have got some money out, but now crypto's gone. And I'm like, damn it. But, that's again, me not listening to my sister and then listening to my brother, who's like, no, leave it. It's got to go here. So I think when you create a plan and then you follow the plan, don't get emotional.
That's exactly right. And who knows, next year your brother could be right again, because it could be back up there. Elon Musk could decide that, okay, we will use it.
Yeah. It's such an interesting space, isn't it? The whole financial kind of investment space is a really good way of people, I guess, learning a little bit about money. But again, I think it comes back to that mindset of investing only what you can afford to lose, like you said.
That's exactly right. And you should never panic. I bought a set of shares and I recommended them to a friend at the time because I was like, oh, my shares are up 60%. And then he went and bought some and they were doing really great at 150% up. And then all of a sudden they dropped and he was panicking, and it got to a point where they recovered so that he could sell his shares and get back what he put in without losing anything. But I didn't sell, I just left it alone. And now they're back up again 60%. So, it's just always just leave them there when they go down and just see what happens.
Yeah. And maybe do your own research that you're not relying on. We did the same. We bought shares back in the years and years ago because a friend said, this one, you have to buy this one. Hot damn, that thing tanked so hard. And I know our friend felt responsible. We're like, no, you can't, you've got, it's your own choice. You can't just rely on other people's, thing without it. And I think what I like about this is that I know for a lot of women, especially if they're in difficult relationships where they have a partner where they struggle to save, or if they're in a situation, where there might be some issues around money, or they're wanting to leave and they can't get out because they can't save money because someone else has control of their money, especially the one that's like rounding your money up and putting it somewhere else, seems like a really great way, if you're in a relationship like that, to start building that little nest egg on the side that possibly nobody else knows about.
Yeah, absolutely.
See where my mind goes. That's my story. We'll talk about that one another day.
Okay. Yeah.
But it makes sense. Well, Mel, thank you so much for coming on and helping us with this. I'm going to go and do a little bit more research because I'm intrigued by this now, especially that it's like an app on your phone. That sounds great. Yeah, I love all of that. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today. It's been awesome to have another South African accent. Now, I would love to know if people realize if my South African accent has ramped up because you're here, because it does that.
That would be interesting to know. Yeah, I get the same comments from my friend as well when I'm talking to family.
Yeah, the accent ramps up. But it's been amazing to have you on. Thanks so much, Mel. And we look forward to chatting to you again as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And the only thing I must note is that I'm not a financial advisor. So everything I've shared with you today is my own opinion and done from my own research. So please, anyone listening, always do your own research or get independent financial advice from a professional based on your own personal circumstances.
Awesome. Thank you. As with everything on the show, the opinions of our guests and ourselves are our own. And I guess that's what exactly what we've learned today, is that you have to make sure that you're doing your own research. But so excited to have you guys listening to us again today. Please make sure that you head over and like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, or even if you know somebody who is hearing impaired, they can watch us on YouTube with subtitles. So we look forward to connecting to you again, and we'll chat again soon. Bye, everyone.